Hey guys, I get so many questions from you guys about intermittent fasting. Many of you guys know that I wrote a best-selling book called The Fasting Transformation that has been sold all around the world. People are reading it, seeing amazing results doing intermittent fasting, partial fasting, and extended fasting. But I continuously get some of the same questions, so I really wanted to do my best to help answer those and to give you guidance and clarity when it comes to these questions. And so the first question is this: what's the difference between intermittent fasting, partial fasting, and extended fasting? Intermittent fasting is a type of fasting. We can also call it time-restricted feeding, where we are eating during the course of a day, but in a consolidated time window, meaning that we would eat, for example, a common one is a 16-8 approach, where we fast for 16 hours and we eat in an 8-hour eating window during the day. So it could be from like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. So you wouldn't eat breakfast and then, well, you would eat breakfast, but that it would just be pushed out later because breakfast actually means breaking fast, right? So if you had it at like 12 o'clock rather than in the morning, and then you ate meals, you could eat 2 or 3 meals between 12 and 8, that would be an 8-hour eating window and a 16-hour fast. So that's a form of time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting. A partial fast is when we do a multiple-day, low-calorie diet. So let's say we did 5 days and we did about half of what most people are normally consuming. But the average person out there consumes about 2,000 calories, particularly the average woman. The average man is usually about 2,500 calories a day. And so if we cut that in half or even went to 40%, let's say we did 800 to 1,000 calories for 4 or 5 days, that's called a partial fast. Now, we really wouldn't want to do that long term because that can actually cause a lot of metabolic problems. But for a short period of time, doing it for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, it can be extraordinarily healthy. And a lot of people do this. You've probably heard of people doing things like juice fasts, where they fast and all they do is they blend up a bunch of fruit and vegetables, and that's all they're consuming. And usually, because those are not high-calorie foods, they're usually consuming, 500, 600, maybe 800 calories during the course of the day. So they're still getting calories in, which does blunt some of the benefits of fasting. However, there are other benefits to partial fasting, meaning that, with partial fasting, you're actually consuming food. And so for people that are taking medications, some medications can be really rough to take on an empty stomach. So you're still consuming some food, so it can be easier to take those medications. For people that are really concerned about weight loss, it can be helpful for teenagers that are wanting to do a fast to help reset their system, to help cleanse their body. It's a better approach because teenagers are growing quickly. They're still going to need calories. So it can be a good approach for a teenager doing that. So you've probably heard of a juice fast, maybe a bone broth fast, or even the Daniel fast is an approach to partial fasting. Because even in a Daniel fast, you're taking out grains, you're taking out meat, a lot of the higher calorie foods, and therefore many people, although not always, some people can consume their normal calorie load. A lot of times people are consuming less than their normal load. So that could be an example of a partial fast. And then an extended fast would be something like a 3, 4, 5 day or even a 7-day water fast. And on an extended fast, as I talk about in my book, some people will choose to do herbal teas, right? You typically are trying to avoid things that are stimulating, so you try to avoid caffeine doing a fast like that. But you can do water, herbal teas, things like that. That can be really beneficial. And an extended fast, you really drive up autophagy, drive up fat burning to a whole nother level. Your body really breaks down and heals and repairs at the deep cellular level. So it can be profound. And people that do this once, twice, a few times a year notice extraordinary health benefits when they're doing this. Okay, but it is obviously a lot more restrictive and takes a lot more discipline. So anyways, that's the first question. Now, second question I always get is, when does autophagy start? And autophagy, I've already used this term a few times today, but autophagy is basically when the body breaks down old, damaged cells and cellular debris. Like within every cell, you have something called a mitochondria, which produces energy. And the mitochondria become damaged by oxidative stress and inflammation. And so we need to repair those, or we need to get rid of them. If we're constantly eating throughout the day, we don't put our body in a physiological state where it can heal and repair. It's always growing and dividing. So you're either in a growing and dividing and building stage, or if you take time away from food, then your body's going to start to turn on genetic mechanisms to heal and repair, right? And starts to cleanse and recycle these cellular components. So when does autophagy start? It's going to be different for each individual, but the typical rule is roughly around 17, 18 hours of fasting, there's like a genetic switch where autophagy gets really turned on. So if you are doing, for example, if you finish dinner at 6 p.m. and let's say you fast until 12 the next day, you've turned on some autophagy right before you break that fast. And a way that you can turn it on even more is actually exercising in that fasted state before you break your fast. Exercise is also a great stimulator for autophagy, so fasted exercise can be a powerful way to induce that. And for some individuals, especially if you're very insulin resistant, okay, meaning that your body it's very hard for your body to get sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells because you're insulin resistant, you may need a longer period of time for fasting. And what I really highly recommend for most people is to do a 20 to 24 hour fast once a week. It's really like a dinner to dinner fast or a lunch to lunch fast. Okay, so you're consuming one meal that day, and then you're fasting, till that same time the next day. And that is a great way to make sure that on a weekly basis, you are driving up cell repair, cellular healing, and detoxification. So you are stimulating that autophagy mechanism. So for me, on Wednesdays, I typically eat lunch, and then I usually fast until lunch on Thursday. And right before I break my fast on Thursday, I exercise at a really high intensity, and I feel great. I feel wonderful doing this, and I'm really breaking down old, damaged muscle tissue that my body should get rid of, and I'm turning that into energy. And then when I eat and I consume food after that, my body's creating new muscle cells, new healthy cells, new liver cells, right? It's creating new, healthy, restorative cells that have strong, stress-resilient mitochondria within them. And that allows me to have greater stress resilience throughout the day. It allows me to have better brain function, better energy, and I just feel so much better on a regular basis. So that's typically my day when I do it. And that's something that I recommend is you find a time or a day every week where you do a 20 to 24 hour fast, somewhere in that range, to really ramp up autophagy. So again, that's another common question that I get. Now, another common question I get is what should you eat? Like, what are some of the best foods, or what should you be looking to do during your eating window when you are eating? So for me, for most of the time, I'm eating 2 meals a day, usually somewhere between 1 and 2 p.m. And then typically my second meal is usually around 5:30, 6 o'clock, somewhere in that time period. And I'm trying to get a lot of protein, okay? I'm a huge fan of a high protein, high healthy fat diet. So I like to do about a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass, okay? So if, for example, I'm about 170 pounds and I'm about 10% body fat. So that's roughly, if you take 17 off of 170 pounds, 143. So to really preserve my muscle tissue, to have great metabolic function, I want to roughly consume about 140, 150 grams of protein on most days, at least workout days for sure. Okay, so if you don't do that quite as much on a non-workout day, you'd probably be fine. Okay, you'll probably still preserve your lean body mass. But for me, that high protein approach really works well. So usually for lunch, I'm consuming around 75 to 100 grams of protein, and I don't count it out. It's not like I sit there and count it out. I just eat until I'm satiated, but I eat high protein foods. So I eat meat, vegetables. I might make a protein shake where I put in 40, 50, 60 grams of protein in that protein shake with berries and avocado and stuff like that. A protein shake can be a great way to break a fast because it's easy on the digestive system. So that's usually one of the first things I do. After my workout, I have a great protein shake. I use some bone broth protein, maybe some non-denatured whey protein, grass-fed whey protein, which is great for muscle building. Put that in there, about 50 to 60 grams. And then I'll oftentimes have some meat as well, or maybe some eggs that I'll cook up to get some extra protein, extra healthy fats. So a very large meal for me. Now, depending on your metabolism, you may consume a much smaller meal. You may not need quite as much calories, but I'm usually consuming a lot of that. And I also love to have dark chocolate. It's one of my favorite foods, high in healthy fats, lots of polyphenols and antioxidants. So that's great. So I do that. And then for dinner, I'm usually eating really healthy protein, grass-fed beef, steak. I'm consuming, we do a lot of grass-fed burgers, grass-fed hot dogs. So we do a lot of things like that. I love to consume a lot of beef. That's my favorite meat, and that and lamb and bison. I love red meat. Of course, sometimes we'll do fish. We do wild-caught salmon. Sometimes we'll do chicken or turkey or something like that. But for the most part, we're usually doing some sort of beef, and I'm consuming a lot of that. And then we'll do different vegetables as sides. So we'll do like a big salad. My favorite salad is a Mediterranean salad where I put in hearts of palm, artichokes, cucumbers, tomatoes, olives. I have olive oil, lemon juice, and then a whole bunch of different herbs like basil, oregano, thyme, different things like that that are kind of mixed in there. And so I'm consuming something along those lines. So that's what I typically like. And then for a high carb, usually I'll do a higher carb meal, usually like once a week on most weeks. And my favorite is the Against the Grains pizzas. If you haven't tried those, they're amazing. It's cauliflower crust, but they do have cassava flour, which is higher carbs. And so I'm consuming that. My kids love it. We put little turkey pepperonis on it, and they taste amazing. So consume a lot of healthy fats, avocados, avocado oil, olives, olive oil, coconut oil. Grass-fed butter is amazing. I consume a lot of grass-fed butter. Eggs are a great healthy fat. So you're looking for ways to get those healthy fats into your diet, as well as the proteins. And then I'm a huge fan of berries. Berries are lower in sugar, but really high in phytonutrients. Really, really good for your body. So I consume berries almost every single day. Blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. Depending on how well your body handles sugar will depend on how much you can handle. For some people, it might be a quarter cup or a half cup. For other people, it might be 1 to 2 cups of berries. But that's my favorite fruit. So that's what I'm consuming. Again, it's the most nutrient dense, lowest sugar impact type of fruit that you're going to be consuming outside of lemons and limes and avocados and olives, which, believe it or not, are fruit as well. So anyways, that's what I'm looking to do. And then I'm looking to get herbs on my foods. So things like cinnamon, basil, oregano, thyme, lots of these types of Mediterranean herbs that are amazing for your body. Ginger is another really good one to be consuming on a regular basis. So that's what you're looking to do. And again, really try to hit your protein goals. Try to prioritize protein and then mix in healthy fats. The fats actually give the protein more flavor, right? So if you're just eating chicken breast, there's no flavor to that. You really want the flavor. So you should put the grass-fed butter, load it up with butter or olive oil. That will give it more flavor along with the herbs and give you more satiation. You need the fats with the protein to help you feel satisfied, so you're able to do the fast. So when you finish eating, like you eat your evening meal, it's much easier to fast till 12, 1, 2 o'clock the next day when you've had a lot of these healthy fats along with the protein. It just becomes, after a while, it just becomes really very, very simple. And so it doesn't take any willpower when you're consuming the right foods. So that's another frequently asked question I get. And then probably the most frequently asked question I get is, what can I consume while I'm fasting? Like, what's okay to consume? Some people say, well, you can consume coffee with butter and whipping cream in it, right? So a lot of people do that. It's really common. In fact, a lot of people call it fat-fueled coffee or bulletproof coffee when they're doing that. And my general rule is this. Like, for me, I like to consume 0 calories. If I consume any calories, I just feel like I'm more hungry and triggered. I have more cravings. My energy's not as good if I consume any calories during my fasting window. So for me personally, that works best. I do consume black coffee, so just coffee black. Now I'll put some salt in it, like a little bit of sea salt, because when you're consuming coffee is a diuretic, so you're actually going to lose some electrolytes. So putting a little bit of salt in it actually makes you get more benefits out of the coffee. So I do that. I will do herbal teas. So I will do like a ginger tea or a lemon ginger or Manuka honey style tea, where it's not actually honey in there, but it's like a herbal tea bag that has Manuka honey, which is just great for your immune system. So I'll do something like that. Dandelion tea is another really good one. Echinacea tea for your immune system. So you can find a lot of these teas. I do non-caffeinated teas, seem to work best for me as opposed to like a green tea. But then I'll get some caffeine if I do coffee. So that's what I'll do. However, now if you are doing some sort of like a bulletproof coffee or if you're putting, whipping cream or butter or something like that in your coffee and you feel good and it allows you to fast longer, right? It allows you to go to, 12, 1, 2, and you just feel good doing that. I'm not against doing that. So if you just feel great doing it and you're accomplishing your health goals, you're burning fat, you're at your ideal weight, you're feeling good, your blood sugar is good, your insulin levels are good, your energy is good, your brain function is good, and you're doing that, great, continue to do it. You don't need to tinker around or mess with it. However, if you're doing that and you just can't see, and you're still doing intermittent fasting, but you're applying that, and you just can't seem to get the last 10, 20 pounds, or you've hit a weight loss plateau, you could try messing around with it and taking that out and see if that helps jumpstart your fat burning. If you notice that you're having a lot of cravings during your fasting window, that it's actually hard for you to fast for 16, 18 hours, 24 hours, if it's hard and you're doing that, try taking it out and see if it's easier. For a lot of people, I notice it is easier. As long as they stay hydrated, do some electrolytes like some salts, they feel better. So what can you have during a fast? Certainly water, lots of water. You can have salt, right? So putting just some salt on your tongue actually can be a great strategy. A lot of people feel a lot better doing that, just getting a little bit of electrolytes in. You can do herbal teas. Electrolyte mixes, possibly, a lot of them are flavored with stevia, which is a good sweetener. However, during your fasting window, if you consume anything sweet, I know for me, it triggers more cravings. I get an insulin release, my blood sugar goes down, I have more cravings, I feel lightheaded, I don't feel as energized or as mentally clear, so I choose not to do that. And really with fasting, one of the best benefits of it is it helps reset your dopamine receptors. So anytime you're consuming sweet foods or like hyper palatable types of things that have a lot of flavor, it's stimulating all your dopamine receptors in your brain. So you're getting this huge stimulation. And that's a good thing, that's a beautiful thing, it's a way that we enjoy life. However, we don't want to be doing that all day long. Otherwise, we actually dampen down our dopamine receptors and we need more and more stimulus to get the same response. So it's actually a lot better to go periods of time where we're not getting sweet, lots of like salty kind of carb rich, your potato chips and things like that stimulate your palate so much. So even if it's something like stevia, so I would take away any sort of sweetness during your fasting window and save that for your eating window. When you're consuming food, great, have some stevia, have some, healthy brownies with stevia in them or something like that, and do it then, right? Have a protein shake with berries and maybe a protein powder that's flavored with stevia or monk fruit or one of these better sweeteners. So that would be a better time to do it. So during your fast, if you can do it, stay strict with water, maybe a little bit of sea salt and herbal tea. Okay, those are probably, and possibly black coffee. Now the rule with coffee is this. If you drink coffee, and you should feel great. Coffee is a performance enhancer. So if you drink coffee, you should feel fantastic. If you have more cravings, if you feel lightheaded a few hours later, if you feel like you need to take a nap a few hours later, it's a sign that your body over-responded, or possibly, it can't metabolize the caffeine very effectively. Perhaps you have a genetic issue, and we do see this when we do genetic testing, where some people have very poor CYP liver enzyme function, phase 1 liver detox, phase 1 liver enzyme function, and they're not able to metabolize caffeine effectively, and therefore they have a poor response to drinking coffee. So if you drink coffee, you feel great, continue to drink that. If you're not feeling good, try lowering the caffeine dosage. You can actually get coffees with different amounts of caffeine in them. You can also try a different type of coffee. Some coffees actually have more mold toxins, mycotoxins in them than others. So try to get a mycotoxin-free coffee, and it might be the mycotoxins that you're responding to. A brand I like is Life Boost Coffee, mycotoxin-free. So that's one thing. And then also try just taking it out and see, after a few days, after you get off of kind of the caffeine overload, see how you feel. For some people, they feel better without the coffee. So that's kind of the general rule there with coffee. And hopefully that really helps clear up many of the questions that you guys have when it comes to fasting. I really think fasting is the most ancient, inexpensive, and powerful healing strategy known to mankind. It's something that can absolutely transform your life. It's transformed my life and so many other people that I know and that I've seen all over the world. And so it's something that I would strongly recommend that you adopt into your lifestyle. Some sort of intermittent fasting strategy that you're doing on a daily, weekly basis, and it will, again, jumpstart your health and take you to the next level. We'll see you in a future video. Guys, remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell button. That way you get notified whenever I put up a new video. We'll see you in a future video. Be blessed.